Yes, I'm ready anytime you
Yes,
are.
okay. Well, we can start. Namaste, everyone. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are.
Yes.
I want to welcome Dr. Lal Jadoo Singh, figuratively and literally a really warm welcome from Texas. Um, to Dr. Lal Jadoo Singh, who will be joining us today. And the topic of the talk is Introduction to the Six Yogas of Naropa, a Buddhist Tantric yoga system. That is the talk for today. A little bit about Dr. Singh. He was born in Jamaica. He immigrated to the United States in 1968. He attended University of Massachusetts, of course, Boston, 1970 to 72, then attended Boston University, the Department of Linguistics and Philosophy, and then at Harvard from 1972 to 76, and the areas were Sanskrit and Indian studies and Buddhist studies. And then finally at UC Berkeley from 86 to 89, and the focus was Buddhist studies. So I want to welcome Dr. Singh. He has been, of course, he's an author and a translator of more than half a dozen books and counting, and I will post the titles of each of the books in the chat as we carry on. And presently, he's preparing his second volume of the Comparative Indo-Western Philosophy Studies. Of course, he has presented at a number of Indology conferences, and he is devoted to writing and translation on Indological and comparative philosophy topics. So with that, again, I extend a warm welcome to Dr. Singh. Sir, we will take it away, but before that, a couple of housekeeping rules for people. If there are burning questions, people can put them in the chat. And at the end of your presentation, we'll allow a question and answer session, and people can actually unmute themselves and interact with you and ask their question. So with that, I want to open this up for you. And if I may burden you a little bit, how did you get interested in this topic, like early on? So kind of set the stage for all the students and want to be students who have joined us. And how did you kind of carry that as your research? So if you want to start with that and then jump into your topic, please. Thank you, sir.
Well, when I was a student of Buddhism and particularly Tibetan language at Harvard University, the German Buddhist scholar Herbert Gunther, Weltbekannt, very famous scholar, published what is the title called Life and Teachings of Naropa. That actually was published as early as 1963 and has gone through several editions. I was dimly aware of Tibetan Buddhism at that time. That is in the 70s, the early 70s. I was intrigued by it, and it seemed to contain a lot of mystery and I gradually became more interested as I learned the actual Tibetan language. When I moved to California in 1980, I was enabled to meet actually a number. I had already met some lamas, some Buddhist lamas, before I was engaged with Theravada Buddhism. You know, that Buddhism from South Asia, and I'm still have it integrated in my practice of Buddhism. But I became more engaged in the practice and study of Tibetan Buddhism, of which one branch is the so-called Vajrayana or adamantine vehicle. the Six Yogas of Naropa belongs to that branch of Tibetan Buddhism. So I had begun a tentative translation as early as 1972 of one of the three texts in that volume, three treatises of on the Six Yogas of Naropa. Gradually, over the years, I completed another two translation of another two treatises and refined them. It was not until 2017 that I finally published the three treatises in the form they are now. The topic is a very, in a way, very esoteric. This is considered, the Six Yogas of Naropa is considered to be among the most advanced teachings in all of Tibetan Buddhism, in all of Buddhism. And that belonging to that period of later period of Buddhism in India called Vajrayana, the Buddhism taught by the Mahasiddhas. There is a tradition of 84 Mahasiddhas, actually common to both Buddhism and other yoga schools. Everybody has heard of Gorakshanatha. He is considered a Mahasiddha within the Buddhist Vajrayana tradition, as well as the Nata tradition of Buddhism, of yoga. So this is how it evolved, and I have been gradually attempting to deepen my own understanding. I've actually done more treatises, other treatises of Vajrayana related to the cycle of the Six Yogas of Naropa. Some of them I published. If you will permit me, this is one of them. And so I also want to do other basic text that in that tradition. I especially want to do those that also have Sanskrit originals that are available. So I'm actually engaged now in doing a number of those treatises also. So a long-winded presentation of my reasons, my background in with the Six Yogas of Naropa. Mm-hmm. But there it is.
Thank you. Yes, that sets the stage, and the stage is yours, sir. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, I said the stage is yours. Perfect. Perfect segue into your topic. So yes. Would you like to begin your presentation now?
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
The Six Yogas of Naropa. Naropa was a Pandit at Nalanda University. The traditional accounts say he was a great scholar who had become quite conceited in his knowledge of Buddhism. But one day he met an old woman, an old hag, as it were, and she humiliated him by pointing out that he actually knew nothing. He knew the words, but not the meaning. And she directed him to study with a great Mahasiddha called Tilopa. He went in search of Tilopa after many arduous journeys and difficulties. He met Tilopa in a forest. An unprepossessing fellow, no mark of being a scholar or anything, but Tilopa hit him over the head with his slippers, and it somehow jolted Naropa out of his pretensions. Then he was taught the Six Yogas of Naropa, and very, very different from the Buddhist, the scholasticism that he had been engaged in at the university. Having realized siddhi, or perfection, in the Six Yogas, he was ready to teach others. Among those taught was the Tibetan scholar and yogi Marpa Lotsawa. Now, the word Lotsawa is Sanskrit Lochana. Now, that is the word for translator. Marpa came to India, sought out Naropa, learned the Six Yogas, became a Siddha in them, returned to Tibet, and promulgated that tradition. And that is how it becomes a part of Tibetan Buddhism. This is in the 11th century CE, that is Common Era. Gradually, the Six Yogas of Naropa became a part of all four major Tibetan Buddhist traditions in different proportions. Now, as to the provenance of the Six Yogas, these yogas are derived from the highest class of Buddhist tantras called Anuttara Yoga Tantras. That is Supreme Yoga Tantras. There are four classes of tantras: Kriya, Charya, Yoga, and Anuttara Yoga Tantras. The first two, the first one predominates in ritual. The second one, or Charya, that is Kriya. Charya Tantra balances both ritual and meditative practice. Yoga Tantra, as the name implies, is more involved in the practice of yoga as commonly understood, pranayama and so forth, Hatha Yoga, more internal in its orientation. Vajrabhati in Tibetan, in Tantra, is the inner workings of Nadi, Prana, and Bindu, these three elements. Nadi is the internal structure of the network of psychic veins, some of them not identifiable anatomically, but some belonging to the subtle body. What is known more commonly in Indian yoga tradition as Linga Sharira. So this Nadi Sanchara, or subtle network, carries the subtle pranas. That's the second element of the Vajra body. And also it circulates what are called bindus. Bindu it means essences. Now, the two most common or major essences that are circulated by the pranas are what are called Bindu and Rakta. Bindu is the male element. Rakta is the female element. See, so the Bindu is also called the white element. Rakta is the red element. Now these are present in both male and female, but in Bindu predominates in man, and Rakta predominates in woman. Now, the goal of Tantra, of Vajrayana, is to refine these essences in both male and female. So there are practices in which male and female synchronize, coordinate, and mutually refine these elements. When these are refined to their utmost, it supports the unfoldment of certain higher psychic states, certain states. The goal is to prepare the organism for this unfoldment, the unfoldment of what is called popularly now the term clear light. Now, what is clear light? The Sanskrit original is Prabhasvara Chitta. That is the luminous mind. Now, this tradition of luminous mind, or the true nature, fundamental nature of mind, goes back to the earliest tradition of Buddhism, where the Buddha said that the mind is resplendent, but is obscured by adventitious defilements. He says, Prabhasvara chittam agantu kileshebihi upaklishtam. That is the mind, just what I said before. The mind is resplendent, but obscured by adventitious defilements. So, all the afflictive emotions or kleshas and all the delusions are considered to be extraneous to the true nature of mind. So, by these tantric yogas, now the 6 tantric yogas all converge on the unfoldment of the true and basic nature of mind. The first yoga is called in Sanskrit Chandali, which means fierce heat. The Tibetan term, Otsal, Tummo, which means just that intense heat. Sometimes it's translated in various ways like mystic heat. Second one is the yoga of dream, or swapna in Sanskrit. In Tibetan, the term is milam. The third yoga is that of that third yoga, dream after dream, is the yoga of now I'm beginning to forget.
Okay, we can go to the fourth one and come back to the third.
Yeah,
no problem.
But anyway, the 6 yogas go up to that of what is called the bardo or intermediate state, and the clear light yogas. That is a crowning yoga of clear light. That is the goal, to unfold the ultimate true nature of the mind. So this is the practice of the 6 yogas in synopsis.
Wonderful. So I'm looking at your book. So something about consuming heat, then the illusory body, dream, clear light, the intermediate state, and conscious transference.
Right. But the intermediate yogas also are important. Those of there's a mystic eat, dream. There's also, yes, you say consciousness transference. That consciousness transference is to be able to project the consciousness wherever the yogi desires. So he may be he or she, yogi, yogini, can shoot the consciousness, as it were, into another realm of existence, a celestial realm, if it may be, a Buddha field, or wherever he desires. He has attained mastery of prana and mind. Now, prana and mind, this is a very important point. Prana and mind are considered to be practically indissoluble. Now, the mind or consciousness is said to travel or ride on the prana like a horse. So whatever activity there is, not just of the mind, but all activities, the motive force of all activities is prana. This is a main and common yogic concept. But especially the mind of consciousness is propelled by prana. And the prana also carries with it the propensities, the psychic propensities. So whatever, when there is any kind of mental activity, any kind of emotional expression, the prana is the motive force there, or motility.
Thank you, sir. I have a quick question. Going through the book, I see that there are 6 senses described. So we're aware of the 5 biological senses, and then the mind is said to be the 6th sense.
That's right.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Yes. In Buddhism, and I think also in some other Indian philosophical traditions, mind is considered also the 6th sense organ. It is not considered particularly privileged in that way. So the 6th sense, so it is considered among those. So the term mano indriya, or mental organ, is common in Buddhism.
I see.
It's a faculty on par with the other sense faculties like sight, hearing, and so forth.
And Dr. Singh, what is the role of karma, the accumulated karma? Where does that reside? You talked about prana and certain things about consciousness. Where does accumulated karma fit into this thought, into this system?
I think most people familiar with Buddhism, even in the most basic way, know that Buddhism attaches a great deal of emphasis to karma. What exactly is karma in Buddhism? The Buddha defined karma in a very specific way. When asked what is karma, he said, and I'll first say the Pali or Sanskrit, Chetana aham karmam vadami. I say karma is Chetana. What is Chetana? Chetana means intention. That is intentional activity. So if I walk and I step on an ant, for instance, and of course probably kill the poor insect, of course that is regrettable, and I might feel even remorseful, perhaps. But that is not a karmically retributive activity, because I did not intend to do it. So karma is defined in terms several layers. Now, the basal layer of mind is given great attention in Buddhism. In the tradition of the Abhidharma, there's the subliminal layer of mind is called bhavanga. this carries the propensities, the accumulated traces of intentional activity. Later on, and in this Six Yogas, the tradition of the basal layer of mind is from the Yogacara Buddhist tradition. That is called the Alaya Vijnana, in Tibetan called Kunji Nampar Shepa, or or for short Kunji. That is the basal layer of mind. It's not that it's so much of a layer, but in terms of function, it's defined as that basic mental flow. That is the carrier, as it were, of karma, and goes from life to life. That is karma Buddhism.
Thank you. Dr. Singh, another question I have, and by the way, guys, if you have questions, please do put them in the chat and or raise your hand. Dr. Singh, can you talk about the 9 mixings? You talk about mixings in your book. What exactly are we taking away from that, sir?
I'm sorry, I didn't get quite what you talk about.
The mixing and the uniform taste.
Mixing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is quite a topic. Mixing. Now, so, okay, we, as a chemist, cook, or just an ordinary person, we know that certain things are considered mixable. Certain things are not quite mixable. If you mix certain substances, you can create an explosion. If we mix certain flavors, they don't come out quite right. But the non-dualistic outlook of Tantra is different. All contraries and dualities are considered in Tantra as reconcilable and mixable. So, for instance, passion or desire, considered a delusion normally within the spiritual traditions, is usually considered rejectable. It obstructs the spiritual progress. That is sensuality, desire. Hatred, of course, is also considered to be a delusion and obstacle. However, in the tantric practice, these are said to be blendable, mixable with certain other states. Now, for instance, the yoga of Chandali, or passion, is said to be mixable or blendable with passion. So if we see the depiction of sensuality images in Tantric Buddhism and in Tantra in general, Buddhist Tantra, Hindu traditions too, we see the statues of Khajuraho, and so forth. What does this mean? This is, these are considered to be highly spiritual images and metaphors. That is a blending of passion and enlightened awareness. So passion, what is passion? Passion is a burning. We talk of burning desire, for instance. So within the practice of Tantra, of Vajrayana, passion is blended with the Tummo or Chandali, and in that way it becomes refined, and it becomes refined into an enlightened awareness. We burn off the dross of passion, and what are we left with? We're left with the essence, which is compassion. So passion becomes refined into great compassion by being blended with the mystic heat or Chandali, Tummo. That is the meaning of mixing, just taking the example of passion. Then also the clear light, the foundational nature of the mind, also becomes purified, becomes unfolded by burning off delusion, and it's said by aversion or hatred being mixed with the clear light, burns off the dross of hatred to reveal the clarity of consciousness.
Thank you, sir. We have a question. Is there a difference between Tantra and yoga? And another question, sorry, is what is the difference between Patanjali yoga and Buddhist yoga?
Between Tantra and, okay, I see a question here, but it's okay. Anyway. So what exactly, you started out with one question and
sorry, difference between Tantra and yoga. We can take that piece by piece.
Okay. Well, Tantra is a kind of yoga. It's a subset of yoga. So the 6 yogas of Naropa are tantric yogas. And what we normally think of as yoga is pranayama, asana, dharana, dhyana, samadhi, and so forth. 6 or 8 limbs. These are all included within the 6 yogas. As you can see, there are postures, asanas. There is pranayama. Pranayama figures very prominently in these yogas. So Tantra is a very advanced form of yoga. Now, there were some questions that I'm not quick enough that come up on the screen.
No, that's okay. So I'm trying to moderate those. Yeah.
I will try to remember them and answer them at some point, perhaps after the main exposition.
Sure. We can return to the main exposition. You can continue, sir, please. Or Kannan, would you like to unmute yourself and ask, please?
Would I like to?
No, so there's a Kannan, N-A-T, not? Would you like to? The question is, sir, is there any similarity between Shiva Tantra, which is Vijnana Bhairav, and Buddhist Tantra?
Oh, yes, there is. Actually, there is a very deep relationship. The Shaiva Tantric tradition, especially that of Kashmir Shaivism and Buddhist Tantra, are very intertwined because the Mahasiddha Naropa is said to have had an ashram in Kashmir. And this tradition of the six yogas also was transmitted to Tibet a lot by the Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Buddhist Pandits. And Abhinavagupta in particular, the great polymath of Kashmir Shaivism, studied very deeply the Buddhist Tantras, and it reflected in the. So Vijnana Bhairava, in particular, that text, which I'm quite familiar with myself, as many elements from this Buddhist Tantra also. So they're very intertwined. Yes, they're very intertwined. The tradition of pratyabhinya, or recognition, and the notion of recognizing the true nature of mind, these are kindred concepts.
Thanks, sir. Kanan here. Can you hear me, Anjali? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very, very useful answer, sir. And where do you get your books in the UK? That's my next one. And also, I don't know. Try not to avoid, try to avoid the Amazon. Some local bookshop is better.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Just hang on. I believe he's still talking, but we're kind of lost him. I think the voice, something's off.
They evolved together.
I think it's back now.
Dr. Singh, your last part was cut off. Will you mind repeating that, please? Just that last bit of your argument.
Am I being addressed, or?
Yes, sir. So your voice got cut off a little bit, like the last few sentences. Will you?
Oh, I'm saying that I believe my last statement was just this. The tradition of Kundalini Yoga, which now very much in fashion, is very akin to the first yoga of the six yogas, namely the yoga of Chandali or Tummo, which, and in fact, Chandali is one of the names of Kundalini. It's that which produces the extraordinary heat in the body. Now, of course, that's just a basic, just one element only of Kundalini, and only one element also of Tummo or Chandali. But when we when popularly conception of Kundalini yoga and so forth is that it produces a particular great heat in the body, and that heat is what catalyzes the yogic process. You cook, it cooks up the special brew which refines the body in such a way that it becomes fit for the unfoldment of the higher consciousness. So that's why the emphasis is on that heat, or Chandali.
Thank you. Another couple of questions. I'll go back to a previous question. Is there a difference between Patanjali's yoga and Buddhist yoga?
Of course, there are differences. Everything is different in a certain way, but the Patanjali yoga and Buddhism are very, very closely interrelated. As a matter of fact, we see that in terms of discipline, the emphasis on Buddhism is the refinement of the mind. Now, how does the in Buddhism, it says that the Buddha's statement is that Mano Pubangama Dhamma, Mano Setu, Mano Maya, which is a Pali, where that mind is precedes all phenomena, and all phenomena are mind-made. In this is the Buddhist emphasis. In Patanjali Yoga, what is the second and third karigas, it begins Ata Anu Yoga Anushashanam. Yoga is going to be expounded. What does it say? Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Yoga is the cessation of the fluctuations of the mind. The Buddhist emphasis is also that way. Then the third verse says, Tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. What does that mean? That also, then the true nature of the of consciousness is established. So that is also the emphasis in Buddhism. Nirodha, the fluctuation of the mind. Nirvana means just that. All the mental fluctuations have ceased, and that's the discipline. All the disciplines are to that end, whether it's Shila or ethical conduct, samadhi, mental concentration, or prajna, or higher wisdom. All of these are to that end, bringing the mind to that state where all mental fluctuation cease, and then one sees with clarity. Now, as to the difference between Buddhism and Patanjali Yoga in that respect, in one respect, it would be, what is the nature of that higher consciousness, fundamental ontological nature? Now, of course, in Buddhism, this ontological nature is considered, is defined not substantially, not as Atman, but an Anatman. That is no self, or no or non-self. Now, this creates a great deal of confusion in people's minds, not only contemporary people, but in Indian tradition. What does it mean? That Buddhist Atman and say Vedic or Vedantic Atman, but the Vedantic Atman is not any kind of personal self or self at all, as normally understood. So the Buddhist emphasis is somewhat deconstructionist in that respect. That now, however you define it as a self, it is not applicable. Because Buddha says, however one conceives it, it becomes otherwise. So Patanjali Yoga and Buddhism are very similar. Patanjali also speaks of dukkha. Buddha emphasizes dukkha as the fundamental nature of samsaric existence. Sarvameva dukkha vivekinaha, that Patanjali Yoga. All everything is suffering for those who are discerning, for the discerning. Buddha also says that. And there are many other examples, of course, I could give, but just to give a few examples to indicate that the emphasis in Patanjali Yoga and Buddhism is very, very similar.
Thank you, sir. There are a lot of comparative questions. Another quick comparative question is Chinese Taoism versus Buddhist Tantra, or Naropa's view. If you can kind of put that in perspective, please.
What is that again? I'm sorry.
Chinese Taoism, the yin-yang concepts, the two polar opposite concepts, and the similarities of that with Buddhist Tantra.
Oh, yes. Okay. Now, some forms of Taoism are very similar to the teachings of Buddhist Tantra. Now, how did that come about? It is not entirely clear how that comes about, but there were these two traditions. I've also attempted to understand the direction of the influence. I can't say with certainty that I know that one is primary and the other secondary, but definitely there's a great similarity in them. The Taoist conception of the inner alchemy and the Buddhist tantric conception, virtually identical. And the yoga of one of the yogas that I sort of practically blanked out when I was enumerating them, of course, is the illusory body. That's very important. The yoga of Maya Deha, or illusory body, in Buddhist Tantra, other 6 yogas. The Taoists also have their a similar conception. That is creating a body composed of prana and mind. The Taoist, the Chinese Taoist tradition have a counterpart of this.
Thank you, sir. Another question is, where can a person find your books in the UK?
Go on Amazon, and they should be readily available.
And I've listed all the titles in the chat.
Amazon UK, yeah, the same titles, 3 treatises. This is a later version of the one that was illustrated in the the notice. And of course, and here also, this is the hardcover version, very recently published. So they should be all available on Amazon.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Dr. Singh? We can allow people to unmute themselves and speak. This is an informal conversation, guys. Please do jump in and ask any burning questions. Or a comment.
Is a question? Is there a question?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes. Hello.
Dr. Anjali, can you hear me?
Yes, please do ask.
Okay. My question is that consciousness that is defined in Patanjali sense and in Buddhism, is it same or it is different concept?
So, okay, again, the concept of
Just the concept
of
consciousness. So the question was the concept of consciousness, is it the same in what we see traditionally as Patanjali and Buddhist yoga?
say differently defined in Buddhism. What exactly is that concept? Patanjali yoga that you refer to?
Consciousness.
Oh, consciousness. Okay. Consciousness in Patanjali yoga is, I don't know if it's so much differently defined. The main difference to me would I would consider is this. In Buddhism, consciousness is always, the emphasis is that consciousness is not an entity, but a process. Now, both Buddhism and Patanjali Yoga consider consciousness as in a psychodynamic way, almost in the Freudian sense. Consciousness is driven by propensities. It's vasana that you see, that is a certain kind of dispositions which indwell consciousness. Those dispositions or vasana is what creates the dynamism in consciousness. Now, I spoke earlier of the second and third verses of the Patanjali Yoga Sutras, which says that when the fluctuations of consciousness of the mind, chitta vritti have ceased, chitta vritti nirodha, when they have ceased or been arrested, then the seer becomes apparent. The Buddhism also says that when the fluctuations of the mind have ceased, the true nature of mind becomes revealed. So they're not that dissimilar. I don't think if we make a careful study of their conceptions of consciousness, they're not very different, really.
Hello?
Difference between Buddhism generally and other traditions, whether they're Indic traditions or Western traditions. Mind is said in Buddhism is said to be the most changeable of all factors ever. It said that not from moment to moment, that mind changes, consciousness changes. It's mutable. Not even as a moment of perdurability can be attributed to mind. That's the difference. But the enlightened consciousness can be said to be beyond change. Beyond change in what way? Beyond change in its quality. It doesn't mean that an enlightened person has the same state of mind all the time, but it is free from adventitious delusions or defilements. It is pure and illuminating. This is the fundamental position in all Indic traditions. I hope that is satisfactory answer.
Thank you for that detailed response, Dr. Singh. Anyone else would like to make an inquiry, ask a question?
Can I ask another question?
Yes, please.
Of course, why not?
Okay. My question is that the fluctuations of mind, can they resonate with fluctuations of mind to another individual far away?
Okay, there's some static there. So the question was considering the fluctuations of mind. Is it possible, Dr. Kanoja, that you could?
Yeah, so will you please restate the question or type it in the chat, please? Because there was a lot of static and even I didn't catch it.
Yes, right. I restate the question.
Please.
Okay.
The fluctuations of mind of an individual can resonate with another individual far, far away.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, of course, that's the case. Whether near or far, that is possible. Now, of course, if I'm in the room with you or even talking to you now, our mental fluctuations are coordinated to a certain degree, of course. But a person who has developed the mind, can clairvoyantly communicate with another individual, even at any distance. Now, there is one particular psychic power that's described in Buddhism called the knowledge of other minds, parachita jnana or jnana. That parachita jnana is a complete transparency of another mind. That is called, but among the 5 or 6 abhijna or super knowledges that that develops from samadhi. So many types of communication in that way can be conducted over over distances. That is, you know, so that is also in the Patanjali Yoga. And this is common to the yogic traditions, all the yogic traditions of India.
Thank you. I hope that question is answered. Anyone else?
Yeah. Is that satisfactory as an answer? Or do you have some other nuance that...
Mishra, was that?
I'm sorry, I am not very clear on what you said on this point, because scientifically, I want to have a scientific evidence that without talking, I am communicating. It is that question I'm asking.
Oh, okay. If you're talking about that sort of empirical scientific evidence in terms of well, I don't know if there are scientific studies of that nature. There might be, and but the main obstacle to that understanding, I believe, are certain kinds of preconceptions. The idea that everything to be scientifically validated as to conform to the preconceptions of scientific materialism. Now, from the Buddhist point of view and the yogic point of view, these kind of yogic powers, like communicating at distances, mentally and so forth, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and the rest of it, are quite empirical for them. They're not metaphysical in the way of the ordinary conception of physical and metaphysical, but they from the yogic perspective, these are scientific phenomena, verifiable at a certain level. Now, even in a scientific experiment, even if we take for granted that what the scientists say is proven, we don't really know that it is proven. We take for granted because we believe that in scientific methodology. But if we had to verify them ourselves, we'd have to conduct those arduous experiments under very specific conditions. And we'd have to have all kinds of studies like double-blind studies and all that sort of thing. Well, the yogis conduct these sorts of experiments themselves and verify them. Samadhi, Buddha says, Patanjali says, these types of long distance communications, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and the rest are possible. That's as much as I can say. I can't. I can only say that the proof is in the from the Indian perspective is in the sadhana.
Thank you, sir, for that. We have about 5 more minutes before we kind of bring this to a close. Anyone else who'd like to ask a question, make a comment about this very informative session today? Someone is asking, can you elaborate on the esoteric nature of your work?
I'm sorry?
Can you elaborate on the esoteric nature of your work? Have you ever been a first-hand witness or experience?
Oh, now you're putting me on the spot.
This was a question. This is a question that came in the chat. I mean, you can, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, as I stated at the beginning, this is an esoteric subject matter. Yeah, that's for sure. To the extent that I have practiced the system myself, to that extent, I can say with some confidence that I've verified a trifle. Now, even if I were to say or claim that I verified everything that is in this book, it would still be a trifle. But I have developed conviction in these practices, and I have a certain enthusiasm for them because of it.
And, from a yoga perspective, if I can just add, take 20 seconds to add to this, there's nothing like personal experience. And we see this as one of the basic methodological challenge, right? Methods challenge in yoga research. Like, how do you quantify that personal experience? And that is, again, that is hard. Just because science cannot figure out or hasn't yet figured out how to quantify some of these things, we can't deny that they occur or not occur, right? So that is very interesting. Anyone else?
Pachatam veditabo vinyuhi, to be personally verified by oneself. Now, even the most intelligent interlocutor, unless they have some taste, the word rasa or taste of this experience, they wouldn't necessarily be convinced. Buddha, when he was enlightened, some people, many people might know, that he hesitated to teach. Why? Because he recognized that his experience was such that it could not be easily communicated to others. So even the most eloquent teacher would have to have a long and close association with others. And the others, the students or the disciples would have to follow, as in any discipline, whether it's science or craft or whatever, follow a certain discipline before they can appreciate the special nature of anything. And this special knowledge is self-knowledge. This kind of self-knowledge can only come from direct personal experience, no matter how eloquently it's explained by others.
Thank you. That is a great way to bring this talk to a complete end. And if we don't have any other questions, I think this would probably be a good time to bring this to a close. There's a question, sir, actually, do you offer any like yoga instruction opportunities where you live? And I believe
generally,
yeah.
I don't do that. I generally don't do that. I don't consider myself an acharya, yoga acharya, or anything like that. But if somebody wants clarification concerning some of these matters that is in this book, I could consider the appropriateness of elaborating on some of it. These are not matters to be entered into frivolously. So I'm guarded somewhat in this respect. But for a sincere person, as I say, a sincere seeker, somebody, whether it's scholastic or on a more experiential level, I have to confess that I let leak some element of my experience in the commentary. I didn't really intend to do that, but somehow some people have told me that somehow it seemed to leak out due to my excess of enthusiasm. I could address some things. Now, with respect to these Buddhist tantras, the traditional way of instruction is there are what are called initiations, abhishekas, to qualify for their practice. So somebody wishing to practice, especially in earnest, if you're not just taking it scholastically, would be well advised to approach some qualified lama and get the instruction. If they do so, then I could consider, when that's verified, communicating somewhat more directly some of these yogic techniques.
Thank you, sir. With that, I will bring this session to a close. Dr. Singh, any last word or words from you about this topic? And then we'll close out.
Okay, just to say that the 6 Yogas of Naropa, I'll say what I said in the beginning, as like a book framing, is one of the most advanced teachings in all of Vajrayana Buddhism, in all of Buddhism. It encompasses not just this life, but at least 3 lifetimes in its scope. The yoga of the bardo or intermediate state, for instance, is a way of crossing the boundary of death consciously, taking birth consciously, whether in the human realm or some other realm. This is an extraordinary teaching, not to be taken lightly. A questioner asked about the scientific verifiability of this. I can't say that I can produce a study that says, oh, Harvard or Princeton or Oxford has produced some study that shows or doesn't or disproves or proves or disproves that this rebirth and taught in Buddhism and some of the Indian traditions is either verifiable or not verifiable. But the testimony comes from some thousands of years of yogic tradition. My own experience is that based on my own practice, I am convinced that this is plausible and realizable. Not that I claim that I know everything about these 6 yogas, that I've verified everything in them. But when one has experienced and verified experientially a certain amount of these teachings and practices, I developed the confidence that all of it is true. If you're going to, Buddha says, if you're going to search of a bull elephant, for instance, and you track the bull elephant, you see the footprints, you see the dung of the bull elephant, you follow the track, you look at the highest trees where it's been scored by the tusk of the bull elephant, and you say, it has gone this way, and then you can find it. Well, in this way, following that analogy, by practice of these 6 yogas, from the very basic one, like the Tummo or Chandali, gradually the experiences unfold. We begin everything, the senses are transformed. One can get the subtle sight. One can see what is not normally seen. We can develop a pure vision that overlays the gross vision of the senses. Now, if you can develop those sorts of experiences from the practice, then enthusiasm arises. When the enthusiasm arises, confidence arises. When the confidence arises, the mind becomes clear. And this clarity of mind gradually unfolds the deeper levels of awareness. The deepest level of awareness is the clear light mind. One can learn to do the mixings that we talked about, to mix passion with the Chandali, or even aversion with the clear light. But it is a gradual practice. It doesn't come all at once. So that is what I have to say about it. There's a certain level of conviction. This is not just an academic subject.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your time today. And I thank everyone for joining us from wherever you are in the world. And we will try to bring Dr. Singh back on again for other topics. Until then, thank you, guys. Hope everyone has a very good rest of today, wherever you are. Thank you, sir. Namaste.